Oh.
Good evening. We want to welcome everybody to our school board regular session. At the time is 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. Can I have everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. You may be seated. Want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. I want to acknowledge that we have people attending both in person and on Zoom. This is the board's business meeting where we are focused on taking action and to support our mission to educate, prepare, and inspire every student to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. We ask for your cooperation and support as we work together to have a productive in-person board meeting. This meeting is being streamed live and is being recorded on the school district's YouTube channel. Will the clerk please take the attendance?
Director Ray. Director Kelly.
Aye, here.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Present.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Andrich, Student Advisor Schroeder,
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here.
Thank you. We'd like to excuse Director Ray. He is out of town. And we would hope that Maddie will join us soon. She's just going to be late. Next up is our approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk, can we take a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The agenda has been adopted. Next on the agenda is the approval for the minutes for the March 21st special board meeting. Are there any changes to the special board meeting study session minute, or I'm sorry, regular meeting minutes for March 14th, 2022? Can we have a motion to approve them?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 14th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 14th, 2022. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The minutes are adopted for March 14th. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the March 21st special board meeting study session. Are there any changes to those meeting minutes? Can we get a motion to adopt them?
Make a motion to adopt the special meeting minutes from March 21st, 2022.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the special board meeting study session minutes from March 21st. Can we take a vote, please?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are adopted.
Okay.
I have to cheat off her paper. Thank you. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is our public comment portion. I just want to read a little bit about some of the things to expect for this portion of our meeting. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. The board appreciates feedback in order to make the best decisions possible to benefit students. In order to permit fair and orderly expression of public comment, the board will provide a period of time at the beginning of each regular meeting during which visitors may address the board on any topic within the scope of the board's responsibility. Board Policy 1400 provides guidelines for public comments. Anyone addressing the board tonight, whether it be in person or virtually, has completed a public comment form and read and agreed to the district's instructions for public comment prior to this meeting being called to order. When the board president calls your name, please step up to the microphone if attending the meeting in person. If attending the meeting virtually, please join as a panelist, allow video, and unmute your microphone. Please refrain from comments that are an invasion of privacy, violate school district policy related to harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination, are disruptive, irrelevant, libelous, slanderous, or profane. Please direct your comments to the board, not the audience, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. The board does not respond to questions during the business meeting in order to comply with the state of Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. The board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Depending on the nature of your topic or questions, the superintendent may ask staff to contact you to answer questions or provide information. If you requested a follow-up response On your public comment form, you will typically receive a response within 5 business days, depending upon research required. The board president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement if it is uncivil or exceeds the allowed time. Each speaker will be given 1 opportunity to speak. First, we will hear public comments from members of the audience who are with us here in person, and then we will hear from members of the audience on Zoom. We have 3 attendees signed up to speak. When I call your name, please approach the microphone and wait until the timer is ready. A bell will ring when your time to speak has ended. Our first speaker tonight is Kathy Medema. Kathy, you may now approach the microphone. Good evening, Kathy.
President Levesque, members of the board, Dr. Sweeting, Arlington School District directors. I'm Kathy Medema, band director at Howler Middle School, and will be retiring in June after 42 years. 3 years ago, I began gathering information on how area school districts designed their middle school electives for a slideshow presentation, as I felt Arlington could be doing a much better job of creating those pathways for student connection. If students make connections during the middle school years through elective classes, the result is greater success in school and in life all the way around. The electives offered to Arlington middle school students is woefully inadequate. Arlington is falling short in foreign language, art, technology, family and consumer science, and music. In fact, there seems to be no real electives program in our middle schools, with classes in sequential progression, and what is offered changes from year to year outside of music. When I started at Howler 7 years ago, I was surprised that there was no foreign language offered, and students in 6th grade don't get their elective class daily, but must alternate it with PE because 6th graders have 2 periods of math. I haven't found this anywhere else in the region, and no other middle school has 2 periods of ELA past 6th grade. Another teacher's research comparing state test results from the OSPI website for math and ELA in Snohomish County school districts found that Arlington's results are not measurably better than other schools. Why should it take Arlington students twice as long to get to the same place as other districts? And why should this come at the expense of the areas where research shows students deeply connect to their school? Something Arlington could do now for next fall is to lengthen all class periods by going to a 6-period day with no blocked classes, no more 2 periods of math for 6th graders or for ELA in all grades. Our students deserve to have beginning band and choir every day like other middle schools. This needs to be corrected. Our students deserve the same elective opportunities as other middle schools. I hadn't intended on going any further beyond sharing my slideshow video with Dr. Sweeting until I learned that my position would be and has now been posted as a 0.5 band and 0.5 math. It's unlikely that anyone qualified to teach both will be found. And the class set of ukuleles purchased with a grant from the Arlington Education Foundation, which enabled Howler 7th grade general music to do the same thing as at Post, will go unused, which is concerning. I would welcome any questions or further discussion of my research, slideshow, or opinions about middle school electives if you contact me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy. Our next speaker tonight is Lance Kupo. Lance, could you please approach the microphone?
Hello. Thank you for giving me this time to speak tonight. I'm speaking regarding the French program at Arlington High School. We've known for a bit that the French teacher at Arlington High School is planning to retire at the end of the school year, but we just learned today that the district has decided to discontinue the French program entirely. As I'm sure you can imagine, as parents are concerned about the lack of the French program in the future. My son is currently in French 1 as a freshman at Arlington High School and has been enjoying learning about not only the French language, but French culture, geography, and history as well. Madam Taylor is an incredible teacher, and she should be commended for her immersive approach to a foreign language class. I also have a student at Howler as well, who's one of Miss Maderma's students in beginning band, and he was looking forward to taking French as well. As you know, most four-year universities require 2 consecutive years of a foreign language study for admission. More selective universities require 3 or more years. Students who have completed French 1 should be allowed to continue in the French program to complete their foreign language requirements. Otherwise, it was a waste of their time and energy, as they will have to start over with another foreign language, which is less than ideal. I'd like to offer up 3 possible solutions in order of my personal preference. Option number 1, the obvious answer, hire a permanent French teacher to continue the French program. And then option number 2 would be to hire a temporary French teacher to carry on teaching French 2, 3, and 4 until current freshmen graduate, gradually phasing out the French program. Or allow students to complete their French classes through an accredited summer school and reimburse parents for the expense. I understand there is a shortage of qualified teachers currently, but it is my opinion that a school district of this size should not be without a French program. Thank you to the board, district administration, and all teachers and staff for your hard work. Without all of you, this district wouldn't be as great as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. We appreciate you taking the time, and Kathy also. Our next public comment speaker is a group of students, and I'm hoping that you're all not planning on speaking for 3 whole minutes each. You planning on sharing? That's perfect. We like collaboration here. So we have Tanner Cruz, Noah Starup, Tennessee Myers, Ryder Wirt, Bryce Ferrand, and Lachlan Calderon. If you would like to please approach the microphone, we would love to hear from our students.
Hi, my name is Tanner Cruz. I'm a student athlete here at Arlington High School, and I play for the Arlington lacrosse team. Last year, we made it all the way to our district championship, and we ended up losing by 1. And we're really hoping to get to play here at the high school on turf next year.
We've all been playing at Arlington and going to school here for a while. So it would be really nice if we were able to play at the actual high school instead of somewhere else.
I'm Tennessee. I'm also a student here, student athlete, and I play lacrosse, and I also play I'm included in other sports at the high school. And like the other 2 have said, it'd be amazing if we would be able to play on our own high school field instead of one of the middle schools, even though it is still Arlington.
Hello, my name is Lachlan Calderon, and I'm a student athlete at Arlington High School. We all are on the lacrosse team, and we all go to this high school, and it would be nice to play on the high school lacrosse field.
I'm Noah Starup, student athlete, Arlington High School. The field we play at is Howler, and it is just turned to mud, and the light has not been working all season, which makes it hard to play. And we'd just like to get the opportunity to play on the field here at the high school.
Hello, I'm Bryce Farrand. I'm a student athlete here. And like everybody here, we want to play on the high school field and not play in the mud pit at Howler. And it would just be really nice to have turf and not grass.
Hello, my name is Hudson Younger, and I play for the Arlington lacrosse team too. And all year we've played on the Howler's field, and I think it'd be very beneficial to our team because we all do also go to the school if we were able to play on the turf field.
I'm Keith Williams. I'm also a student here, and like everyone has said, we all want to play on the high school field, but we ended up coming back this year and defeating Archbishop, which is who we lost to in the championship last year. I think having an opportunity to play on the turf would help us lessen the gap between us and the better teams here that win our league.
Thank you, gentlemen. One more.
I'd just like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate your thoughts. Do we have any other public comments signed up in person?
Not,
Are there any online attendees?
there are not.
All right, we will consider the public comment portion of our meeting closed. We want to thank everybody who spoke tonight for your comments and for your community engagement. This really helps the board better understand our community and its needs. Next up on our agenda is our consent agenda. This consent agenda includes our budget and enrollment reports, our personnel report, our warrants, adjusted warrants, an overnight field trip for the AHS Neobots robotics team to Spokane, an overnight field trip for the AHS FFA to Tri-Cities, overnight field trip for the FFA Vet Science team to Pullman, overnight field trip for the AHS Airy Choir to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a cooperative agreement with Central Washington University, and a declaration as surplus of pupil transportation vehicle. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our consent agenda as presented. Can we take a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
Director Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The consent agenda is now approved. Thank you. I would like to take a moment and introduce two people. We have some new additions to our district. We'd like to introduce Matt Jurek. He is going to be our new Director of Technology, and I wanted to know if he would like to say a few words.
Good evening. Thank you, Arlington School Board. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and to meet you over Zoom. I look forward to meeting you in person very soon. I'm tremendously excited to join Team Arlington this summer, and really that's just about it. Just a whole bundle of excitement to get going. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I can't wait.
Thank you. It's very nice to have you join us tonight. We're looking forward to working with you and getting to know you. We also have another person that's new to our district, and that's Brooke Howell, and I think she's with us. So Brooke, would you like to say a word or two?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I want to thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm beyond excited to become the next assistant principal at Howler Middle School. Getting back to the middle level where I can build relationships with the students and the staff and the community families of Howler Middle School is something I look forward to in the coming year. And I just look forward to the opportunity I've been given, and thank you very much. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Brooke. It's very nice to put a face with a name. We were excited to have you join us, and we will look forward to working with you soon. Next thing on our agenda is our new business, our academic and student well-being plan update. And for this, we'd like to introduce Superintendent Sweeting. Dr. Sweeting, will you please give us an update on the academic and student well-being plan?
Yes, I will. And I will be joined for one of the slides with Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations. So first, I wanted to give a quote that was stated by Dr. Spitters at our last meeting last week. This was his quote: "This is as good as we can get." So I'll let you know what that means when I show the next slide. So as you can see, the infection rate for the county is just, it's lower than the last time. The last time it was 145, and now it's down to, I think it's 76. And so that's what he means by this is as good as it's going to get, you know, because it's at 86. So that's an appropriate quote. The next slide shows a new little add to our website. It's a tab where instead of right when you open up the website, where you see our metrics, our school district metrics, you click on this tab and it takes you right to those metrics. And so I just wanted to make people aware of that. And so if you click on that tab, that link, you will see that last Friday, this was updated and it will be updated every Friday. This is what the infection rate is district-wide. And so there's 8 positives and 0 close contacts. The next slide is even more impressive because the asterisks show that we don't put numbers if they're less than 5. And so there are, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So the low numbers in the county are playing true to our district. We, for this week there, we had some positives today. There's some increase, but not significantly. So we'll keep monitoring that and watching that and sharing that. This is a slide that Krista Kramer, our district nurse, shared with me, and it shows today, this is as of today, there's a little tick, a little turn up of a little bit, but not significant of a close contact. So this is over time for our Arlington. This slide is a picture. Is that me talking? Okay. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna, sounds like there's a thunder coming or something, but I'm gonna talk way over here. So I hope it's loud enough. Okay. Last week, we were able to give out to the community, and there were community members and family members, the COVID test kits, because we have many of them and they will expire come June. And so we want to make sure they are not left on the shelf. And so we passed out the Krista, Catherine Ray, and I think Tiffany in the pouring down rain last week in front of the district office. They had a drive-through where people could drive through and pick up the tests, and they passed out over 1,000, so 1,081. And tomorrow, hopefully the weather will be nice. It will be better than it was last week, but we're gonna again provide that opportunity for drive-through for tests. This is where I'm going to ask Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations, to come and talk about some changes that are coming up after spring break.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, directors. After spring break, as part of decommissioning COVID in our response to it, we've been, our students at the elementary level have continued to eat meals in the classroom, both breakfast and lunch, and we're having record participation in both of those meal times due to the waivers from the USDA that are allowing us to serve meals at no cost through the end of the school year. After spring break, we're going to change our process and move lunch and breakfast service into the multi-purpose rooms of the at each school. We use those as cafeterias and gym spaces. As part of this, we'll be able to add back in salad bars at the elementary level, which we have not had. Right now, all of our meals are pre-packaged in compostable clamshells and then brought to the classrooms for distribution with the students, or some schools have the students come and pick them up. And in the morning, it's grab and go for breakfast, but still there's more packaging involved. So more packaging equals more staff time. We added 24 hours a day food service time across the district to accomplish this additional packaging. We've also added 6 hours a week of garbage truck driver time to pick up the additional garbage, and our custodians have had to change their practices in order to pick up the garbage from the classroom. So all that's going to get unwound when we move back to the multipurpose room for meal service after spring break. Reading one of the principal's newsletters to staff this weekend, she cited this move as regaining some instructional time. So there's another benefit associated with that change. One thing that we may have some concerns with is the number of students eating breakfast, because we've never had this kind of participation at breakfast and at the elementary level at least. And that could, because so many kids are participating, that's going to have some additional workload in terms of setting up and tearing down the multipurpose room to prepare for instruction after they're done. But it will ultimately, it will result in lower costs for the operation of the program, and kids will still be able to access food. In fact, they'll be able to access more food now that we're turning to the salad bars. One thing about the salad bars that you should know is that our initial practice is going to be to serve prepackaged fruits and vegetables in the salad bars rather than going to allowing students to serve themselves. We'll get there at some point, but we're going to have to provide some instruction to the students so that they understand how they're supposed to act when they're cleaning or getting food out of the salad bar. So that's my report.
Thank you. Yeah, we have some questions.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis.
I have a question for you, Brian. Are all the children going to start all back at the same time, going through that lunch line and getting their trays and sitting in the cafeteria, or is it going to be implemented incrementally?
Well, each school building has, I think they have 3 lunches right now, and they're divided by grade group into those different lunch periods. So they're not all going to be eating lunch at the same time. They'll be divided by grade level. I did propose to them that we stagger the introduction to the principals. When I say them, I mean the elementary principals, but they chose to go the route of just ripping the Band-Aid off, is how one of them describes it, and starting them all at the same time. So even though they'll have staggered lunch schedules, they won't all be in the lunchroom at the same time, but they all will be starting on the same day.
That answers that. Band-Aids ripping. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. The next slide has another change pending board approval after spring break. If the board does approve policy 1400 today, then we will move the board meeting location to the district office into the regular boardroom. So that's another change potentially in the works depending on tonight. And that's it. What other questions do you have? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Thank you for that update. It's kind of fun to see what more we can normal as we possibly can. Speaking of normal, the next thing on the agenda is our approval of our key calendar dates for 2022-23 and 23-24. Wait, Gina, I said it wrong. We're going to have our financial highlights of our current budget. Whoever wants to go. Eric, you're on my agenda. But we changed it somehow. So would you like to go next? Are you prepared to talk about a calendar?
You are the boss, so if you want me to go, I'll go.
Please,
Happy to-
go
happy to
ahead.
go.
Tell us about calendar.
Yes, I think we're going to bring up the calendars here. So we have 22-23 and 23-24. We're hoping to provide a little stability and advanced planning for our families and staff and get a 2-year calendar out with at least the key dates, which are basically the main things that parents would need to worry about, and also staff in terms of planning their schedules. So following this similar format that we typically do, first day of school is always after Labor Day, the Wednesday after Labor Day. Christmas break or winter break is a 2-week, has to be 2 full weeks. And this is a thing with in agreement with our bargaining unit, the AEA bargaining group. So our teachers union, that it's 2 full weeks at a minimum that includes 3 weekends, right? So you get a weekend before, a weekend in the middle, and a weekend at the end. And then depending on when New Year's and that falls, there may be an extra day thrown in there. And so you see for the 22-23, is this 22-23? I can't see it very well. Yes, we get an extra Monday off because with New Year's being on January
21st on a Sunday, then the official holiday is the Monday. And so that we take that extra Monday off in the 22-23 school year. Last day of school for this one is going to be, and spring break is always the first full week of April. And last day of school is on a Friday, which is obviously a little bit of a, we're taking a risk there because if there's any snow days, then we're all automatically into that next week of school or next full week in June. Also, for your awareness too, Juneteenth, which is the new holiday, is also a day we cannot have students on campus. And so if we did end up going to that next week, we would not be able to have school on the Monday because that would be the holiday for Juneteenth. So Tuesday would be the first makeup day. So the rest of that week would be makeup days. And then June, or the 23-24 school year, which is a little bit more challenging. Again, same format with breaks and things. With this year's calendar, 23-24, Christmas is on a Monday. And so if we just start with the first day being the Monday, it doesn't give folks a lot of time for traveling and those kinds of things. So we sent a survey out on this one. Do we want an earlier break or a later break? And this is the one that won by an overwhelming margin, 70% to 30%. So I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting more of an even shift with people, wanting more time before Christmas for shopping, et cetera, and more people wanting time after New Year's. But it was a landslide, and there was over 400 responses. So it was a very well had a lot of responses. Obviously, that's a good turnout for a survey with 700 staff, for over 400 to respond in a week. So. That's the proposal before you.
Thank you,
Any
Eric.
questions? Yeah.
Are any board members have any questions? Do our student advisors have any questions? Director Kelly?
I have a question. I'm just wondering if you can tell me why Arlington School District doesn't have a midwinter break like many of the districts around us do.
Yeah, a midwinter break, and a lot of districts do have the midwinter break around President's Day. We just never have here, as far as I've been aware of. We may have had an extra day at one point in time, but seems like people had wanted to kind of end school earlier. That's the challenge. If you have that midwinter break, then it's still 180 days. So however you get the 180 days in is how you get them in. And so midwinter break would then extend the end of the school year out. So it's a choice, and what do people want? And so we haven't explored that option, I guess, recently. Maybe something to consider again in the future, but it hasn't really come up. So. And that did come back on the survey a little bit too. There was a couple of comments about that. But.
Any additional questions for Mr. DeYoung? All right, thank you for your presentation of the calendars. Board members, do we have a motion to approve the key calendar dates for the 22-23 and 23-24 school years?
I'll make a motion to approve the key calendar dates for the, 22, 23, 23, 24 school years.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the key calendar dates for the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The key calendar dates are approved, and now you can schedule all of your fun adventures. Thank you, Eric. Next up, we have also Gina. And Gina's going to talk about some financial highlights.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? I'll try to project and use the microphone for which it is the purpose of. Good evening. I'm Gina Zutenhorst, Executive Director of Financial Services, and I am here to give you a informational presentation on the financial highlights of our current budget. And we do these pretty much on a monthly basis in alignment with when our budget report for the month is on the consent agenda. So on consent agenda, we have February's report for our budget. And so now I get to tell you a little bit about what the highlights are at this point in time for this month for our budget. And again, this is somewhat educational for anybody listening and for board members to hear about our finances each month. Some of it you'll remember as a theme because you've been hearing me talk about this before. So my apologies for some of the duplication, but I do think it's important to hear it over and over as you absorb, and then your elevator speeches, if you're out in the public, will be more ready at hand. So anyway, I start with the financial positives for our district. It's always important to start with the positive. We have a healthy fund balance that is helping to sustain our operations. We have a 4-year educational programs and operations levy that is very important to the school district and shows good support from our community in helping us along. We have federal funds that are also providing us some relief, especially this year. We have ESSER 3 funds that we are currently spending. 3.6 million is our ESSER 3 funding. We have a couple of special and new grants. We've been talking about them, but they were unplanned for when we started the year. We did not know we would be getting these. And so they are of great help. It is Department of Health Learn to Return grant, and that has given us $490,000 worth of funding to help with our response to the pandemic environment in the school district. We have the CARES Act Emergency Connectivity Funds of over $750,000, and that is for purchase of equipment, instructional equipment that is going into the hands of teachers and students. Chromebooks and laptops. I can't recall the brand name of what they're using. So some financial challenges. The initial budget estimate for 21-22, starting out the gate, we believed we were going to be ending the year with our fund balance down to our minimum reserve level. Our staffing levels that we have maintained were at pre-COVID enrollment levels. And then we also infused our staffing with additional staff to meet the needs of students, especially coming back from learning at home and wanting to help accelerate the learning that would be happening in the classroom and responding to just the unique needs that the students were presenting with upon return to school. Our enrollment is recovering at a slower pace than we had hoped. Our number of programs that have unique needs that are greater than the revenues that are being generated by their associated funding models. For example, our special education program and our child and nutrition services programs is creating some challenge and a bit of use of our resources. And then we're continuing to experience costs associated with COVID-19. Here's our fund balance trend. This is something that we've been looking at each month, just having an eye on where is our fund balance and what is it doing? Is it on trend? Is this what we would normally see at this time of year, and how are we doing? So you can see that this is multiple years, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, and this year aligned over the top of each other over the course of a year. So you can see that there are a couple of high rises and a couple of low spots. Typically, the high rises are in October and in April, and that is when we receive the large majority of our tax levy funds, because that's when people are paying at Snohomish County. So our fund balance usually takes a big rise at that time. So this year, we are really starting to see the impacts of our staffing levels and the costs that we are taking on to operate at what we need to do. Our fund balance is becoming lower than it has been in previous years, but not out of line with it. So we're right about where we were last year at this time with our fund balance. And I do expect it to continue to fluctuate along the same trend, but I do expect to still end the year lower than we have in previous years. As part of this presentation, I always like to highlight what are we spending federal ESSER funding on. Our spending plan is presented in this pie chart. And you can see the majority of the pie chart is green. And those are for staffing in the school buildings, instructional staff, teachers, paraeducators, counseling staff, and other social emotional supports. The smaller slivers in the pie are for technology equipment, nursing staff, and summer school, which is a very happy thing for us to be able to continue to provide free of tuition for students, student recovery, of credit recovery, and credit advancement. This is something that we have been looking at each month, and it has not been changed since the last time you looked at it. But it is a good measure that OSPI uses, and then I have extrapolated it for 2021, which is last year. It has not been audited yet, so that is not up on OSPI's website, but I have extrapolated the data for us for this tool. And we have a bottom line score of 3.35 for 2021, which is good. For 21-22, it is at 2.45, and that is just based on a projected estimate based on budget. It will be higher if our fund balance comes in higher at the end of the year. This has not been updated for any of the budget revisions that we just made. And we are still doing just fine with that score because the cut score is 1.70. So at that level, you would be considered to be on financial watch. So I think we are still healthy where we're at. This is a look at the adjusted working forecast. I have not made adjustments to this either. Nothing substantial since the last that you've looked at it, but it continues to represent that our future years are looking leaner than has been in the past. And yet we are still waiting, now that the legislature has ended, we are waiting for those tools that we can get new revenue estimates. And we are also needing to run all the numbers to get new expenditure estimates for our staff. So the picture is going to change. And also to update it based on the enrollment that we approved in our February board meeting. So there are lots of little facets that will change this picture soon. Some other highlights and information that I haven't shared these little tidbits with you before. I had to give this something new to look at. So I'll share that our local tax revenues, we have collected 4.2 million of the 9 million that we have budgeted to be received as of February 2022. And that is a normal spot to be at, as we will now collect another large portion of that here soon in April and May. Our expenditures as of February were 97.32% of our budgeted expenditures. And that means we've either spent it or encumbered to spend it. And so being at that level, usually we at this point would be more in the range of 95, 96%, which was also another indicator for me that we needed to do a budget extension. And of course, the board has already considered that in our March meeting last March and approved that. So that's a good thing. And those will not be reflected in the reports until the next meeting. because I'm preparing and reporting to you on February. March, we will encompass those budget extension changes. And the overall outlook of our current budget is just with the advent of new revenues, it's really helping our future years picture, and that we're going to just continue to carefully watch our costs, our revenues, and our enrollment trends for our future years for a more positive impression for the out years of our forecast. I don't have a thank you or a questions slide, but I will welcome your questions at this time, and thank you.
Gina, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
So observing the growth that is happening on the business sector of our community, it feels to me like there's potential revenue. I'm wondering, can you give me the number that we would look at from a local tax revenue, that what does the district get of that piece of pie? What does the district normally get? And then how do you look at the prospect of additional revenue in the future as you see Arlington growing?
Yes, well, it depends on the levy that we passed. So, and it's been a while since I've spoken very articulately about taxes and assessed valuation, but those properties would go into the overall assessed valuation base. And our levy is already at a set amount. So we do not really get the benefit of that increased assessed value, not at least for our overall local tax levy. It could have an impact on our levy equalization fund. It's LEA, and I am probably misnaming the acronym on that.
Okay.
But so I'm not able to answer that too specifically, other than it's not going to help us very much this year or next year.
Okay. And Gina, is that because of how the levy is set up? Then it has that sunrise, sunset, it has the time frame. So whatever we're agreed to in that time frame is what we're allotted. And then after that, then there's a reassessment looking at what's
Yes.
Okay. That answers it. Just pie, yeah, it's in a future time. It's not something we can count on right now then. In the near term. Great.
Correct.
Thank
That
you.
was my understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question too?
Sure.
Can you go back like 2 slides where you were talking about 95% is what we're normally at, and we're at 97% now? When you account for the budget extension, will those numbers possibly bring us back to 95%?
Yeah, we'll be better. I haven't done those calculations, but yes, we will be better at alignment.
Okay, one
And
more.
it'll show in March.
We'll find out soon.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Okay, one more question. Next year, are we planning to have in our budget enough, if we are still required to do all the COVID PPE, if we still need to provide masks and we still need to do all those extra things that cost money, is that going to be part of our budget?
It should be, to some extent we would need, and we could also build a little bit of contingency budget in there. There are some things that we're just going to have to do now from now on, but it wouldn't be at the level that we've probably had to do it. There was something else I was going to say with regard to that. Some of those costs, the PPE in particular, we are hopeful to be getting funds from FEMA to reimburse us for some of those costs. Last year, we did receive about $136,000 to reimburse us, to help us with some of those costs. And we are getting prepared to do another claim for about $120,000, which will again help with some of those costs. But there are a lot of other costs around that are COVID related that aren't necessarily PPE or cleaning materials that aren't claimable to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association.
Thank you, Gina. Those are my 2 questions.
So my question relates to what you're just talking about, which is with COVID restrictions lifting, is that going to be also more of a weight off of the budget?
It does not seem to be so, because the lingering things, I would say, are more with our students and with the learning. So the heavy weight is now upon our peoples in our community and students in achieving the learning. So there will be some relief, but I don't think it would be too marked. A lot of the costs we've had, we've invested in a lot of Chromebooks and technology. So the cycle for replacement would be something to continue to look at. And one other thing I forgot. My mind is working faster than my mouth.
That's okay. Thank you. I want to make sure that the students are supported and yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for the distinguished Gina Zutenhorst?
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Next up, we have our Asset Preservation Program Report 2022. I'd like to introduce Brian Lewis, our Executive Director of Operations. Good evening, Brian. We're really excited to hear about the Asset Preservation Program Report for 2022.
Hello again, directors. Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations. I'm here to speak with you tonight about the Asset Preservation Program. This is an annual report that we provide to the state of Washington. Part of that report is a report to you, to the board members. The program is structured so that the schools that we receive state assistance for, state construction assistance program, for which we're receiving money from the state for construction of the addition at Arlington High School. So this will apply to that as well. Buildings that we receive state construction assistance program funding for are required to be maintained at a certain level, and we have to assess that level each year. And if we don't maintain the building to meet that minimum standard, then we lose access to state construction assistance program funding in the future. So it's a test for us to see if we're going to merit receiving additional funding in the future. So that's the essence of the asset preservation program. And it applies to buildings that were accepted by the board after December 31st of 1993. I'm going to show you a list of those buildings in just a minute. So those buildings are Kent Prairie Elementary. At Kent Prairie, there's two different structures, that the actual instructional building itself and the play shed that's in the yard behind the school. Arlington High School, there's 3 different structures at this site. The main building, the CTE building, and the greenhouse that's attached to the D wing. And then at President's Elementary, and it's only that one building there. And you can see on your screen here the dates that the board accepted those buildings as complete. So we have to do this assessment annually. Every 6 years, we have to have a certified assessor complete the evaluation for us. I am not a certified assessor. We generally contract that out to a third party individual. In the past, it's been Fred Owen of Owen Consulting, or McGranahan, architect staff member. Those are the people that we've turned to perform a certified study. So this is a table showing all the different buildings that are covered under this program, the age of the building, and then the building condition assessment score from 2021, and then comparative to the building condition assessment score for 2022 and the OSPI standard. So the goal is to maintain the buildings in such a way that our assessment score is higher than the OSPI standard. And for each year of the building life, the assessment score decreases. So there's some expectation on the part of of OSPI that buildings do degrade over time, especially when you've got thousands of people moving through them every day. So I also included the assessment score from last year, so you can see the effect that some of the projects that we've been conducting through the capital projects levy have had on improving the assessment, or excuse me, the condition of our buildings, particularly at Kent Prairie Elementary in the main building, at Arlington High School in the main building, and then at President's Elementary, where we've not completed the project there, so we can't claim an improvement at that point. But at Kent Prairie and Arlington High School, we've been able to get that score to increase compared to last year, and we're still above the standard expressed by OSPI for all of the buildings that are covered under this program. So we are preserving not only the investment that we've made in these buildings, that the community has made in these buildings, and the state has made in the buildings, but we're preserving our access to future state matching funds if we apply for them. So the steps that we've taken in between 21 and 22, at Arlington High School, we painted the exterior steel at the building. That's the gutters, downspouts, structural steel that you might see exposed. It's particularly at the front and back porch of the schools, and then the exterior doors as well. That was part of our contract with Castle and Company, and in building the addition to the high school, we also included the painting of all the exterior steel at the school. And then at Kent Prairie, we had a operable wall in the multi-purpose room that had not been functioning for several years. We were able to get that wall operating properly as it should be now. So now the function is restored, and we can use that in that building now without damaging the flooring. So those are the improvements that helped us improve our scores at those two sites. So the next step is, after tonight, you don't have to take any further action on this. This is merely a report to you that's required by the program. I'll go back in to OSPI's website and make a note that I've made the report to you, and then we're good. So in 2 years, we're going to have the certified assessor conduct the review, and at that point, you'll get a broader presentation as to the findings of that assessment. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is the wall, the operable wall at Camp Prairie, is that the one that like you pull it to the middle in that multi-purpose room, it kind of folds, or?
Yes, it does. And when it's retracted, it's inside of a pocket that's in the gym, and then we can pull it out and extend it all the way across. Then there's a doorway built into one of the panels, and we can pass through that doorway. So you can use the room for multiple purposes at the same time. So for example, we could have lunch service occurring on the side where the kitchen window is, and then instruction occurring on the other side of that wall. You don't see it on this report because Eagle Creek is not included in the program, but we did the same thing at Eagle Creek as well. So the full functionality has been restored to both of those sites and for that wall.
Any further questions for Brian? Thank you for that report, Brian. We appreciate your hard work. The next agenda item is yours as well. And that's going to be approving the contract for installation of secure entry vestibules at multiple schools. Please share with us about the contract for the installation.
Okay. Wrong document, sorry. Okay. So what you have before you tonight, and what we're asking for your approval on is a contract with a company, a construction company named LBC Construction out of Bellevue. This is the company that submitted the low bid for the installation of secured entryways at President's Elementary, Pioneer Elementary, and Weston High School. This is the second iteration of this process that we use to attempt to acquire bids for this work. The first iteration was using a process called the Small Works roster, and that was not successful. We only received one bid. It was well in excess of our estimated costs, so we rejected that bid. And then we moved to a public bid process where we placed advertisements in publications like the Daily Journal of Commerce and the Everett Herald, and conducted a walkthrough for vendors, and then accepted bids on March 24th and opened them in a public manner. LBC was the low bid. This is for, again, installation of secured entryways at Weston, President's, and Pioneer. The contract total is $488,000. This is more than what the architect was anticipating. I did get some conflicting information from the architect today that expressed a lower anticipated cost, but the bid package included an architect's estimate of $475,000. So the contract or the proposal that we received for $488,000, we were pleased because it was about $380,000 less than the next lowest bid. So this was, we thought, a pretty good result, especially compared to the Small Works process that we went through the first time, which was also more than $400,000 than what the estimated cost was. So by going through the public bidding process, we were able to achieve some savings. And this company and the vetting of LBC, they are highly recommended. They do work for Bellevue School District and Bellevue Community College, and they're very pleased with them. The references that we checked said that we'll be happy with their work. So just as a refresher, a secured entryway is the installation of a second set of doors inside of the building, and then some remodeling of the office. And I'll explain why that's necessary in just a moment. But the concept, and we've got these in place at Kent Prairie and Eagle Creek and Howler Middle School, is that at the start of the school day, both sets of doors are open and students can pass through them into the instructional area. But when the bell rings, the interior set of doors locks electronically. And for someone who wants to gain access to the building, they can go through the exterior set of doors, which is unlocked, and then they have to be vetted at a transaction window that's installed in the office area. That's the need for the office remodel. And they get, we check their ID, determine if they have a reason to actually come in the building, and if that's, if they have an appointment or if they're a volunteer, and then they're allowed access to the building. The staff can stay inside of the office area and open the interior set of doors electronically. It's also handy for people who just want to drop something off or pick something up. They don't have to come all the way into the instructional area. They can just take care of business inside of the secured entryway and without having to come in the building. So that's the real the purpose of these installations, is to provide that security function at the entry to the building. So we expect to start construction June 27th and be substantially complete by August 26th. We have had some issues in the past with acquiring storefront, which is the aluminum structures that hold glass and the doors. That's one of the reasons we are going earlier. We are bringing this earlier to you this year. The last round of secured entryways, we didn't bring a contract to the board until the end of May. We were still able to make those substantial completion dates that we had envisioned in the past, but since then, The supply chain has become even more chaotic, and we want to give our contractor as much time as possible to acquire the structures that they're going to install. That's why we're bringing it to you a month earlier this year. We had hoped we could bring it to you a month and 2 weeks earlier, but we didn't have that positive result with our first bid process. And that's delayed us to now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I hear no questions. I think you answered all of my questions in your presentation. Thank you, Brian. This is an action item. Do we have someone who could give us a motion to approve the contract for installation of secure entry vestibules at multiple schools?
I make a motion that we approve the contract for installation of secure entry vestibules at multiple schools.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for installation of secure entry vestibules. Madam Clerk, can you please call for a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our first reading of our board policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements. Gina Zutenhorst, welcome back to the microphone. Will you please share with us information about the revisions made to the board policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements?
Yes. Hello. This is a first reading of this particular policy, and we are making the proposed changes to this policy to help bring our policy into compliance with legal requirements around this matter. So this particular subject matter, bid requirements, has had a lot of changes to it over the past 5 to 8 years, I would say. It has been in a constant state of change, it seems like. These latest changes are mainly to bring the policy into further compliance, and it's all around federal guidance, where bid compliance is required with federal funds. So there's a statement added also under Interlocal Cooperation Act, Section E, that says we have to make sure that if we enter into an agreement with another government to piggyback off of a bid process that another governmental entity has already done, that we have to make sure that they have followed their own bid requirements, which seems pretty much common sense. Or you'd think, well, it's another Washington State school district. They have similar or the same, but it's not always another school district. It could be an out-of-state vendor. It could be a different government type. And so they want to make sure that school districts know that they must verify that if they are piggybacking on another bid and using an interlocal agreement to do so, then we have to make sure that they followed their own bid requirements. It goes on further later in the policy to update the federal procurement requirements for goods and services by adding language around self-certification as a low-risk entity, which would allow a higher purchase threshold before it would need to demonstrate the best deal through documented quotes. That's the simplest way I can try to describe that without getting too into the details. It further goes on to talk about cost and price analysis. There's a big paragraph on that later down the pages. And this is required for very large purchases. So if it's over 250,000 using federal funds, mostly this would only be triggered by things we already bid in the food and nutrition program, for example. So perhaps a milk bid or a bread bid. This would be taken care of in the bid process itself. And it basically says we need to pre-analyze and know what a good market price is for something so that we know if the bids are coming in at a reasonable level. And finally, paragraph G, it says it again about the interlocal cooperation, a repeat of what was said earlier about interlocal agreements. So this is the first reading. Are there any questions?
Gina, I know that we had talked a bit this morning in cabinet about possibly changing the wording of minority to maybe communities of color or some other term. And I think that we had
Yes,
been pondering that.
I'm glad you mentioned, and I will make a note of that on our paperwork so that we can bring a different presentation on that. And I can think of up the channels to make that recommendation also for the group that we use to help us with our policy updates so that they can be aware of that as well and be sensitive to that. It's probably something that's still in the laws. It might still have that language in the laws that require us to use, and it's in this policy, it is in the part that's talking about using a multitude of different kinds of businesses and making sure that you're giving, spreading out who you're doing business with and which groups you need to maybe give special consideration to. So it uses the word minority business. And yes, so that might be something that's still in the legal part of it, but that doesn't mean that we can't adjust our language. I just think that might be why the group that advises on it hasn't taken it under and done that change for us. Thank you. I will make a note for future revision on the next reading.
Hi, Gina. Would our district qualify as a low-risk auditee?
We could, but to do so, we would have to go through some steps and procedures. And then there are additional watching and doing to make sure that you keep your status, and that those that are out there that need to be charged with getting quotes are always in alignment with what level are we? We are 10 or 40. So we would qualify, but whether we need to make that adjustment or not within our practices is still something that I'm consulting with other districts about, whether they're utilizing that criteria for themselves or not. Seems that many of them are still discussing whether they want to take advantage of that or not.
Any further discussion or questions for Gina? Great, thank you for your help with explaining that change. Next up is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 1400, Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum. Dr. Sweeting, will you please share with us about the revisions for Board Policy 1400?
So this is second reading, and we have discussed this first reading, and really the focus is on changing the location of our regular board meetings to the district office boardroom. It doesn't say about the study sessions. This is just about regular board meetings. So it's that. And I think that's really the main, we're scrolling down here. And there have not been any questions or concerns brought to my attention about this change.
All right, is there any discussion? Or can I get a motion to approve Board Policy 1400, Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum?
I think my question is, would we be meeting here still for special meetings, or would we be at the district office?
Most of the study sessions would be here. There may be occasional that we would not on the stage, but out in the common area. There could be other study sessions at a different location as well, but we would publicize those as required by law.
And Dr. Sweeting, just to kind of dovetail on Erica's question, is there a particular reason to have it in those two locations for the special meetings versus the regular board meetings in two locations?
In the past, it's been just common practice in the last 6 years that I've been here that the study sessions are usually in a more casual setting rather than like the boardroom.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's always been that way, but it's been the practice most of the time to be in a more casual, open workshop kind of a setting. So we've had them offsite. We've used at the airport, they have a room. At Haller Park, they have a room. We've used other venues as well. But I think that we've set on the calendar for the tentative dates for our study sessions to have it here at the Burns Performing Center in the Commons area, just as a placeholder.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. That makes more sense to me now.
I'm chomping at the bit to make a motion to approve the policy 1400 to go back to the board room.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the adoption of board policy 1400. Madam Clerk, can we please have a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next in-person regular school board meeting will be at the school district office on French Street. Did I vote? I don't know. That's a good question. That was so many minutes ago, I forgot. So that motion passed, right, Debbie? Debbie's nodding. She's paying attention. And then next up is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 3520, student fees, fines, and charges. Welcome back, our special Gina Zutenhorst, Executive
So-
Director of Financial Services.
Yeah, so policy 3520, student fees, fines, and charges. Again, this is a second reading, and the changes that are being made here are to bring us again into compliance with legislative changes. And these are the suggested places that WASDA has helped us to know, hey, there's the legislative changes and you need to change your policy so that you're in compliance. And so you can see that mainly the words that are different are grades and transcripts. So the laws changed to prevent school districts from withholding grades or transcripts when a student has lost or damaged district materials or property, if they have not made proper restitution for those things. So that's still deleting those words, and it's also deleting the paragraph that talks about grades and transcripts. Total deletion of this paragraph where it says a student has transferred to another school district but has an outstanding fine or fee. So districts used to have that legal authority by board policy to withhold certain records if there was an outstanding fine or fee. And that will no longer be the case with the deletion of this paragraph. So making these changes will bring us in alignment with what the laws say, removing barriers.
Any comments or discussion about this second reading? Then we can have a motion to adopt this board policy 3520, student fees, fines, and charges.
I make a motion that we pass the student fees, fines, and charges policy 3520.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve board policy 3520, student fees, fines, and charges. Can we please take a vote?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. That policy is adopted. Thank you, Gina. Next up, we have our informational items. I'd like to start with Superintendent's reading.
So this week, we have elementary conferences on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, a great opportunity for our staff to connect with families and just tell the good stories and the good success stories of learning, and then areas that maybe there's improvement that needs to take place. Next, I wanted to share that we are looking to have the interviews for the Arlington High School principal position around the week of April 18th. And there will be interviews and there'll be a community forum as well on that week. And then next week is a well-deserved break week for the district. So spring break, the offices and the school offices will be closed next week, but there will be people working. Some people will choose to not take vacation next week, but the schools will be closed.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Next up, Director Kelly, do you have a legislative update for us?
I do not. I am not, I do not have an update. I know Eric and I sort of are exchanging times when she's able to hop on and attend with the sessions on Thursdays. But as far as I know, unless Erica, you want to chime in, I'm not updated on anything particular at this time.
All right, thank you, Director Kelly. Okay, next up, I'd like to open the floor up to all directors to share some comments. Maddie Andrich, are you with us on Zoom? Would you like to go first?
I am with us. I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, everything's going well. It's actually nice to be in person and see everyone's beautiful faces. It's funny when one of the first days where there was no mask, I was like, wait, like I had this picture in my mind of what certain people looked like. And then when I didn't see it and I thought it was something else, I was like, wait, your face isn't supposed to be like that. Like our mind just makes it look a certain way in our mind, and actually seeing their face and seeing these people and being able to connect. It's been just truly an eye-opening experience, one that I am happy that I experienced and now I am through, and hopefully tell my grandchildren about one day how I was in this pandemic. So yeah, there's my little update.
Thanks, Maddie. Our other student director, Kyle, would you like to share some comments?
Everything is going fine for me, so nothing new, but that's all right.
Thanks, Kyle. Director Kingman, would you like to share any thoughts?
Well, I'd like to share that I'm looking forward to our new venue next month. Thank you.
And Director Knapp.
I'm really looking forward to being in the board room. Not that we don't love it here, but I think it'll just feel more like how it's supposed to, and just really get in that mindset of being at work. I understand why we had to be here, but also looking forward to spring break. And I think my kids really are too.
Thank you. Director Kelly, would you like to share any thoughts?
I do. I just wanted to allay concerns in terms of the lunch program, having people go back to the multipurpose room for eating. We've been doing it now. This is, I think, our second week at Lakewood, and it was definitely a ripping off of the Band-Aid, but it was a good thing. And I think the kids love it. I actually have more time for my own lunch because kind of get the kids set up, get their trays, and they sit. It's almost quieter in that room because the kids are next to each other and they have conversations with their classmates versus being spread apart and shouting over each other, trying to get the attention of another classmate. So all is going well. I'm happy for the change, and I'm sure Arlington will have equal success. And I think the kids will really, really appreciate it. So kudos for having that happen. And even if it's after spring break, and get some time under your belt and make that work, but it'll be a good change. So, and I too am looking forward to spring break. This is my conference week. I think I had about 5 people today, families that I met with, and it's intense. It's always I think it's very positive and necessary, but it's just a lot. It's a lot to process, but I'm enjoying it.
Thank you, Director Kelly. I just want to say that it's been great to see so many smiling faces, and I hope there hasn't been any unhappiness. I love to see so many smiles. It's been, a lot of people are very much ready for spring break. I know the teachers are tired, and I know the parents are tired, and I know the high schoolers are very tired, and I'm really excited about spring break. I'm looking forward to seeing lots more smiling faces. I want to share just one little quote to help you understand where I'm coming from. Somebody shared it with me at a PTA meeting a long time ago, and it just has stuck in my head. It was talking about an economics lesson from long ago about a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's just stuck with me as I've helped in my kids' classrooms, as I've tried to help classmates and friends and PTA groups and entire neighborhoods in HOAs and things to try to lift everyone around you. And as we lift everyone around us, it makes everybody better off. And so I just hope that everybody shares smiles, joy, kindness, love, patience, and understanding, and that we all are better off together. And with that, if there's no further business, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you, Director Kelly.
Second.
President Levesque, could we talk about next meetings?
Oh, yes, thank you. See, if I screw up, there's backup. Our next meeting will be a special board meeting study session that will be held here at the BPAC in the lobby on Monday, April 18th at 6 p.m. And then our next regular board meeting will be held on Monday, April 25th at the district office boardroom at 6 o'clock also. Thank you, Debbie. And then we can have a vote to adjourn.
I make a vote, we adjourn. I make a motion.
I'll second.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned. Have a great evening.